Welcome to Street Art Unearthed, where we interview some of the world's most prolific artists to discuss what compels them to take their artworks to the streets and how they became the super street art icons that they are today. I'm your host, Stephanie O'Brien. As somewhat of a hyper-level street art fan, I have travelled 6 continents documenting the ever-evolving art form in some kind of attempt to immortalise whatever I encounter. Street Art Unearthed is an extension of that pursuit, where the art takes a bit of a backseat and we instead get inside the mind of the master creators that bring it to life. Thank you so much for joining us. Street Art Unearthed is brought to you by splatters.com, the online street art publication, where you can find street art news, artist interviews, and even downloadable maps on where to locate the best art in cities across the world. Check it out at splatters.com, splatters.com. On the podcast today, we have Peter Drew, a guy who makes posters and sticks them up on the street. While he doesn't really enjoy the label of political artist, it's hard to avoid mentioning that his art, as iconic as it is and posted in literally the whole of Australia, is deeply political and does a very good job at poking uncomfortably at those who pass it by. I first saw Peter's artwork in Brisbane in 2017. I'd just arrived back from overseas, I had not been paying attention to the political landscape, and I had no idea what he was trying to say with his poster. All I knew was that there were old photos of people from a variety of backgrounds with Aussie written in harsh capital letters. I didn't understand why, but this poster hit me in the heart and made me want to cry. Much of his work has this impact on me, and that is exactly why I wanted to talk to him. Peter is a guy who appears to be driven by a moral compass that is always questioning what's right and trying to create conversations at every level in the hopes of unlocking some empathy. I am humbled to have him on the podcast to talk about his experiences. Peter Drew, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
That's my pleasure. How is it going there?
Good. Well, the whole COVID thing's on now, obviously, but it hasn't changed things for me all that much.
Okay.
I've spent a lot of time in the studio just working, so
Okay.
I think it's affecting other
imagining.
people more than it is me. To be honest.
Okay. I was imagining it must be torture for a street art artist being on lockdown.
Yeah, I wasn't planning to go out a lot at the moment, but if I was wanting to launch a campaign, it would be tough.
Yeah. But you have the campaign at the moment, right? Together Soon Enough. How is that circulating? You're kind of doing that through community networks and stuff, right? Or social media?
Yeah, normally I'd travel around and stick up the posters, and I just had to realize I need some sort of plan to overcome being locked down and isolated. So yeah, I've never done it before, but I contacted, just put it out to my followers and said, if you want to post up the poster, I'll send one to you for free and you can stick them up. And yeah, so far it's going really well. It's kind of great actually seeing the images come in.
Yeah.
I've been trying to vet it a little bit because the first thing that occurred to me is that if I offer to give away posters for free, people will just go, yeah, I have a free poster. I'll stick it up in my bedroom. So the idea I had was just to, if people send me a photo of the wall, and that way I get to assess it a bit. It's like, because I don't want people sticking up places where it's just going to cause trouble. Especially not for me. So I'm getting a lot of photos, and it's kind of fun because people are sending in photos of good spots. I'm like, that's a great spot for a photo, which is good fun.
In that for later.
Yeah, exactly. I'll come back. Yeah.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah, because usually my thing is to travel around a lot and spend like a good sort of week at a time in a city, putting up as many posters as I can. So it really is like a campaign. And then I just have long stretches of time when I don't put up anything and I come up with new work and do other things. So yeah, that I've sort of fallen into that pattern of making posters and putting them up that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And with the Together Soon Enough posters, it's a bit of a detour from your political art that you have been doing for the last couple of years. Was it just a response to COVID-19 that you thought we all need some reminders that the cuddles are coming down the track?
Yeah, and it was just what I was feeling most of all.
Mm,
I've been doing political art for a long time, and I don't like political art on the
mm,
whole, and I've always wanted to approach it in a way which was just different in some sense, because I'm not a sort of a partisan, um, political actor.
mm-hmm,
I don't really think of myself as an activist,
mm-hmm,
um, and and the whole COVID thing kicked off, and I saw people sort of just running on the old software of like, oh, this is, let's blame the politicians, and
mm,
it's a really uninteresting way to deal with a crisis, because the way it affects people is more interesting. And I just started to realize that, well, this was going to mean that I couldn't see the people that I care about,
mm,
um, and and we all need physical affection as a part of being human. And I just
mm-hmm,
think that that's more what the role of art is in a lot of ways, is to just create solidarity by expressing these collective feelings.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I've been doing political art for a long time, so I really jumped at the opportunity to do something that wasn't so political.
Yeah, yeah. I love the humanity in your work. I think that that's the common thread that sort of strings between this and what you have previously done. When I first saw a poster of yours, as I told you when I reached out to you a little while ago, it was in 2017. I had just come back from overseas for a little while, and I really didn't know much about the political landscape in Australia. And it was in West End in Brisbane, and it was one of the MongaCon Aussie posters. And I had no idea what message you were sending exactly, but it just hit my heart and made me want to cry. And I think that it's really, that's beautiful. Like, I felt a little intimidated asking you on the podcast, thinking like, oh shit, I can't have a deep political conversation with you. Your knowledge is off the charts. But I think that's the beauty of your art, that you don't even need to know why it hits you. It just like really fucking hits you. And it's powerful.
Well, I mean, I don't try to make clever art for the sake of it. I'd much
Mm,
rather hear that a poster is effective rather than it being clever. Like that's
mm,
almost, it almost defeats the purpose when you're trying to. And there's so much contemporary art falls into that trap of being clever, and it's in that sense, contemporary art is a subculture for a certain type of elite, and I just find that profoundly unappealing. I like making
mm,
work that communicates to everybody, because
mm,
communication is hard. It's so easy to be
yeah.
misunderstood. Let
Mm,
like so yeah, that's good to hear that. I like that the posters, and I don't think I know. I don't sort of consider myself to be super politically informed. I don't, but I just think about people. I mean that
mm,
people as psychology. The psychology of people is endlessly interesting,
yeah.
and you can apply that to politics, but it's not. But it's not. Yeah, that's not necessarily the same thing as thinking politically. Um,
Yeah.
so anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Do you agonize over your work? Because it's really, yeah, I can imagine
Yeah.
so. It's such a craft to, especially for that poster, just it's a picture and Aussie. It's so simple, but I can imagine that, I don't know, either it was a stroke of genius or a lot of mental agony trying to figure out what would have such impact.
Well, I talk about it in my book a lot, because I sort of
Mm-hmm.
had an idea for how that would work, what the sort of the ingredients would be, and for that image, I knew I'd have to sort of search to find the right image that really hit home,
Mm.
and then I sort of played around with different words to put on it. It had to be sort of when it comes to posters, sort of economy is super important. It needs to convey the message as quickly as possible. So a word with less letters is better than a word with more letters, and so on and so forth. And sometimes I come up with designs that I know they're not great, but it's just something I need to do in order to get my mind onto the next thing. And I've sort of,
like a stepping
and then
stone.
sometimes, and it's not until I go through the whole process and I see the poster up on the wall and go, okay, I've done that now. Now I can sort of move on. But until sometimes you have ideas and you go, no, that's crap. I'm not, I'm not going to do it. But sometimes you go, I know this isn't the best thing, but I just need to see it made, and then maybe I'll see what's wrong with it, and it'll help me sort of move on. But if you do nothing, sometimes it just you lose a certain creative momentum, which is the most valuable thing of all, is that feeling of just sort of moving forward.
Absolutely. And would you do that in small batches, like little test groups to see? Yeah. Not printing thousands of posters.
Yeah.
Or not printing, screen printing.
Well, the thing is with screen printing, it's sort of, to make up the screen, it is kind of a slightly expensive process in terms of getting ready. It's as a medium, it's perfect for doing large print runs.
Okay.
And so even when I have a design that I know I probably won't make much of, I still have to go through a fair bit of work to get to that stage. So it's sort of, there's that moment of like, is this design worth trying? And if maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it's a nice sort of barrier to deciding whether you should make it or not.
Yeah, yeah. And the reason that I started this podcast was that I've been documenting and writing about street art for a number of years, and I liked the idea of talking to artists to figure out what compels them to take their arts to the street. I've been to many places, met with artists, and sort of you hear about, similarly to you, they're trained artists, they've been to university, they could sort of follow this path and go down to galleries and into this elitist kind of area. And I find it fascinating that people take their own money and their time and just stick it up for the public without necessarily getting any royalties back from that. And you are for sure the perfect person to speak to about understanding this, having traveled the entirety of our country to stick up posters on a number of causes, right? How many national campaigns have you done?
A few. Two really big ones, and then sort of smaller ones. But
which was the Aussie and then the Real Australians Say Welcome, is that right?
Yeah. In 2015 it was Real Australians Say Welcome, and then 2016 the Aussie posters, and they sort of continued on. It's sort of a series that I think I'll just continue, because there are really endless photographs in the archive, and it really it cuts to that the sort of the dynamic with between nation and race, that is kind of an inexhaustible problem in a way, or an inexhaustible tension. So I don't think it's going to lose its meaning anytime soon. Like some idea that sort of, if I did something about, I don't know, if I did something super topical, like about Trump or something like that,
has a lifespan.
Exactly. So yeah.
But what is?
You go.
Yeah. No, well, I was just going to say, like, how did it come that these were the issues that really sat with you? I know in your book you talk about when you were in Glasgow in the UK that having the Australian identity starts to get forced on you quite a lot. And then did you have this kind of intensity for fighting the system, or sort of pushing back and kind of making a bit of noise against it? Or
I think an element of it is there in everybody that puts art on the street and it
Mm.
really comes down to, it's not intellectual. Obviously, you can describe it intellectually, but
Mm-hmm.
it's temperamental. Fundamentally, that desire to be independent and to not be beholden to an institution, and to sort of
Mm-hmm.
and underlying that, there's just a distrust for authority.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that's what really unites everyone on the, well, no, not necessarily unites everyone who makes art on the street, but
Yeah.
that's something I've just known about myself forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't mind working with groups of people and institutions, but I need to have that part of my work which is mine, and I have as much control over it as I can, because it's just freedom. It's just not
Mm-hmm.
wanting to be boxed in.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I guess that led me to political work, because I'm making art that's sort of politically focused, because that's the nature of public space as well, that it's going to be seen by the public, and so it makes so much sense to communicate in a way that is going to reach the public. I mean,
Mm.
there's you can look at it a couple of different ways. I mean, there's one side of graffiti, especially, which is a
Mm-hmm.
subculture. It's for the people who make it. It's about including the people that make it and excluding everybody else.
Mm.
And I love that.
Yeah.
But it's not what I do. It's just sort of
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And what I'm trying to understand how you can get an idea and then just be so driven to, like, the videos that you create to get funding, and the work that you put in, is it must just be exhausting. I read in your book as well, you mentioned how you get blisters on your feet and your toes, and you just kind of keep going and persisting, and you face criticism from people and you just keep going and persisting, or maybe that fuels you in some funny ways. But yeah, like, is it just that you were so irritated with what was going on, and you just saw it as such an injustice that you were compelled to hit the street?
I don't think so. I think if artists were honest, artists and activists, if they were honest about themselves about why they do it, I think it's
Mm,
because they like the feeling of intoxication that comes with being involved in a struggle of that kind.
mm,
If it was really about helping people and seeing those people helped, uh, there's more. Then you would you'd do something more closer to the ground. Essentially, you would actually
yeah.
find the people that need help and help those people. But when it comes
Mm,
to making art, it's that intoxicating feeling of uh, there's just a joy to communicating en masse. And
mm,
when it comes to doing that politically, you have an instinct for what people want to see or hear, and but it
mm,
comes from your own personal desires, really, because
mm,
when I started getting into the Australian identity stuff, there was a part of Australian identity which I thought was being overexpressed. That was
okay.
the sort of the xenophobia and the let's stop the boats. And there was a part of
Mm-hmm,
Australian identity which I thought was being underexpressed. And I thought, well, if I'm the person, if I'm feeling this in
mm-hmm,
Glasgow, um, then I'm sure there are other Australians that are feeling this also. And yeah, you can sort of create something that expresses that collective feeling. But
yeah.
I think the core, as an artist, you've got to be honest with yourself about that. It's sort of, yes, you want to see change, but fundamentally, there's just this desire, there's this joy that you get from communicating and seeing other people um, understand what you're saying, and
Mm-hmm,
you feel connected in that way. That's the driving force, and that sort
mm-hmm.
of comes before wanting to create political change, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. And what was the experience like traveling the country? Like, I don't know, from a being far from home perspective, as well as the kind of interactions that you would have.
Um, yeah, it was pretty intense in a lot of ways because
Mm,
I took on big projects like that because I wanted to get lost in it and
mm,
wake up every day knowing that knowing exactly what I was going to do that day and just be 100% focused on the one thing for months at a time. That's kind
mm-hmm,
of a great feeling that you can really get lost in, and it builds up its own momentum, and you have to try to keep control of it. It's kind of different to everyday life. Like I woke up
mm,
today, I knew I was going to talk to you at some point, but I've got a bunch of other things, and I might go and make a coffee. When I
yeah,
was in a project, there was just I was thinking about one thing. It was getting up as many posts as I could, and then there are all the things that were sort of attached to that. That's
mm-hmm,
sort of being wrapped up in it is super intoxicating.
mm-hmm,
And the first time I did it, rocking up in Sydney or Melbourne, massive cities, having to
mm-hmm,
figure out how the city works, how to use it as sort of as territory to be explored.
mm,
Um, it's a lot of fun. Like it's really it taps into a part of your mind which is I don't know. You don't need to use in everyday life, and there's something super sort of aggressive about it as well. Like the city,
yeah,
because most people don't look at the city as going right. This is a territory to be explored and dotted with posters.
mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah,
Did you have
it's
a
not. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Did you have a background of the cities, or do you kind of go in blind and then just figure out some sort of system to find the best spots? You seem to be very good with engaging your community. So I would say, I'm sure you had a lot of help along the way finding the best areas.
Yeah, I sort of put it out to my followers to sort of suggest places, which was really good.
Mm-hmm.
But once you've been to cities a couple of times, you get a pretty good idea of where to go. But I
Mm-hmm.
found as the years go by, you really need to keep finding new spots in order for it to be fun and enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, that's what I've realized slowly is it really is about exploring new territory.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of that's what I'm in it for. And in the
Mm-hmm.
start, I didn't really realize that. But after going, like, I've been literally at, like the same wall, 3 or 4 times over the course of many years, putting up a new poster, and it's a it's
Gets
satisfying in a way, but
repetitive.
nothing's better. Yeah, nothing's
Yeah.
better than like, finding the new spot and going, well, that's going to be hard to get to,
Yeah.
and eventually getting it. But the first time around, every single wall was like that, and so it was just
Yeah.
yeah,
That
it
must be
can't ever
thrilling.
be as fun as that again. Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. It was great fun.
Yeah. Nice. I love how in your book you really talk through in detail of how you're received in these different cities or towns. I'm from Toowoomba, and I have to
Oh,
admit
really?
when I was yeah, I was reading the part about Toowoomba and you're, like looking for racists in Queensland, and I was like, yes, fuck yeah, tell me how bad Toowoomba is. I haven't lived there for about 13 years, so but growing up there, yeah, it was a fairly small minded place. It's definitely changed, as you mentioned in your book. But I have to say, I was disappointed when I read on that you were disappointed to find out that it was lovely. I was like, damn, I wanted some dirt, some
Well,
situation.
those people are definitely out there, but I really wanted to get across in my book just how um, I don't know, just the assumptions that you have when you start getting involved in activism and
Mm-hmm.
politics in any kind. It's very easy to fall into partisanship and seeing
Mm,
your opponents as objects, essentially, to be converted or and
mm,
just to demonize them in so many ways. And so in that case, I was you know the urbanite looking at people who live in the country as being typically backward. When that
mm-hmm.
was just a prejudiced view that I had,
Yeah.
and I just think it's very easy to sort of to slip into those. And the last thing I
Mm.
wanted to write was a book that it was just sort of rah rah.
Shit
Let's
on all the towns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think that it's easy to fall into that trap in both sides of politics. Very easy, and
Hmm.
I'm guilty of it at times. And I just thought that's sort of that's a story worth telling, because
Hmm.
politics works a lot better if we talk to each other as if we might have something worth
Hmm.
as if the other side might have something worth listening to.
Yeah. Yeah. That is again one of the things that I loved about reading your book is your sense of awareness and the way that you seem to check yourself all the time. You are obviously pretty compelled by your morals, but you're always checking what they are and why you're feeling the way that you are. And you articulate that so well in your book. I'm impressed. This is your first book, right?
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
there a lot of editing involved, or you just wing it amazing?
I don't know how much. No, well, there's definitely had an editor. But yeah, I don't know how much editing typically happens, but I mean, I definitely had to write it all myself. But that
Yeah.
was kind of interesting, actually, getting into that process, because it's sort of a thing of, you show the editor, and then they say, explain more here. This doesn't make sense,
Hmm.
and then you have to go back and sort of work it out. But that was really good. And I sort of went into it with full confidence in their abilities. I think if you're a professional writer and sort of considered yourself an artist, it'd
Mm.
be a lot harder to take notes from people. But I thought, I'm the street artist. These people are, professional editors. I'm going to listen to what they've got to say. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And what was the motive for creating the book?
uh, clarifying everything that I've learned, really, because I think
Hmm.
since I really got started on these large projects, I was just, as I've said a few times, kind of intoxicated by all the momentum and just
Hmm.
running with it. And I had a lot of experiences and felt myself change in a lot of ways. And I thought I really need to take stock of it all in order
Hmm.
to sort of move forward and to and to not get stuck within it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. And how are you feeling about things that in Australia at the moment?
Um, I'm sort of politically, I feel somewhat disengaged. I mean,
Hmm.
not entirely, but I not I don't always think about politics.
Yeah.
I try to think about things on a more personal level a lot of the
Mm.
time. Just thinking a lot about my studio and what I want to make next.
Yeah.
Different printing materials.
Nice. I
Um,
guess it's a good thing, right? There's nothing glaring that you need to s- stand up against.
well, I mean, there's always something, but I guess I don't really want that to be my reason for being. Um,
Mm.
I mean, I think my stuff is ultimately about personal reflection.
Hmm.
I don't want people to see my posters and go, "Yeah, let's go out and change that thing that's out there." It should
Mm.
always be about, let's think about what I am and what I'm doing, and uh, yeah, that's kind of the difference between art and activism or propaganda. It's whether it
Mm.
speaks to structures or whether it speaks to your own internal choices. And I just find the internal choices more interesting in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
There's more sort of nuance there, um,
Hmm.
and it provoke in that sense it provokes contemplation rather than just um, because activism, it's about imposing your will upon the world.
Mm.
Um, and there's in a
Kind
sense that
of
there's what.
stagnant as well. It's sort of still, it doesn't always allow for a lot of changing ebb and flow of how you feel or different perspectives you gain.
No, I mean, activism works best when you remove the nuance. It's about
Mm.
taking the details out but yeah, and what I was going to say is that whenever someone is certain of themselves politically and they've removed the nuance from their argument and they're not listening to the other side, there's an element to that which is always going to be ugly. And I just,
Mm.
even if you're on the quote unquote right side of history, when you are raising your fist in the air and telling the other side, and not willing to even listen, there's just this sort of ugliness that comes into that,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to avoid that.
Yeah. So what are you working on next?
Hmm. Um, I got a couple of designs yesterday, which I'm pretty pumped about actually, but it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of not finished. But I just yeah, I'm sure that's going to be printed eventually.
Okay.
Um, but at the moment, most of my time is going into the Together Soon Enough sort of hug
Mm-hmm.
uh, coronavirus poster,
Mm-hmm. And
and I'm working on some.
what's that
Sorry.
like at the moment, managing it, engaging with people to get it out, or
Yeah, printing posters, emails,
mm.
licking a lot of stamps, going to the post office a lot. So
Okay.
it's yeah, it's not as much fun as traveling around sticking them up. But I'm going to do a bit of that here, or done a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. But yeah, it's mostly just connecting with people and
Mm.
uh, and motivating them to stick up posters, which is different. I don't think I will. Um, it's not like I'm going to keep doing it this way forever, but it is fun at the
Yeah,
moment.
that's nice. Very cool. And
Yeah.
the book, is there anything more that you want to say about it? How's it been
Um,
received?
yeah, really well. That's been a great thing. It's different writing a book than it is doing any sort of project.
Mm-hmm.
It sort of has a longer tail, and it sort
Mm-hmm.
of builds slowly. Whereas when I've launched a project, it sort of happens all at once in
Mm-hmm.
some ways.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm sort of writing again. I'm writing a new book, but I can't really
Okay.
already talk about it because it's sort of
Damn.
still in the very early stages. But
Okay.
I basically I enjoyed writing enough in order to want to write more. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Excellent. Well, I, for one, am very happy to hear that. I think that you're a great writer. You come across really well. I enjoyed reading your
Gee,
book thoroughly.
that's really nice. Thanks.
You're welcome.
But how did you get into this? Like, was there a moment or
Mm.
anything that you discovered street art?
Yeah. There definitely was. It was kind of actually just before I stumbled upon your poster. That's something I should have mentioned or wanted to mention at one point. But I was in Lyon in France in December 2016, and I was thinking about quitting my job. I had been working and traveling for work in sales. And yeah, and I was just sort of like, what would I do if I didn't have to worry about money? And the street art culture is incredible in Lyon. And there was this one little stencil that I walked past one day, and it said, something like, I hope you die. And I sort of like chuckled to myself, like, that's nice. And then walked back past it the next day, and someone had written by my side. I'm like, ah. And then I saw on Instagram, like a month later or something, someone had written again, put in brackets underneath it, in love. And it just sort of ignited something. I was like, I love this, how people are communicating on the streets and it's so public, but so many people don't notice it. And something just sort of clicked in my mind that I would notice this forever. And I was, my radar kind of came on. And yeah, your poster was another thing that kind of hit me. I had just come back. It was only 2 months later that I saw your poster in Brisbane. And I had seen, beautiful murals. We have some stunning street art in Brisbane, but seeing that was another thing that I just sort of thought, fuck yes, I love this medium. I love how people, whether you like it or not, will put something up in the street and kind of confront you the way that you think. And yeah, and then I just kind of became completely compelled. And I had a pretty shitty blog that I was putting up street art maps. And because whenever I would travel, I would go through Instagram and look at locations and make maps for myself to see where might have good street art. And then I would update them to where actually did and sort of get rid of all of the pins that were useless. So I started sharing that with other people, and then that blog was pretty ugly. So a good friend of mine from Sweden, I was living in Sweden last year, Sedki Alimam, he's a art director there. He helped me to set up the new website, which is splatters.com. And there it's basically just the same thing, kind of, I don't know, capturing street art and writing about it and sharing it with people. I don't know why I do it, to be honest. It's just a bit of a compulsion.
That's great.
Started as something for myself to share with other people like myself, and it's kind of evolved to also include wanting to amplify street artists.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a solid basis for a long-lasting obsession, is not knowing why, but knowing that it's something you need to do.
Yeah.
Do you sort of like still sort of work in sales and sort of make time for this on the side?
No, I ended up going into freelance content writing, which was another sort of random shift. I had not been writing beforehand, but I felt like I had a knack for it. So I was like, yep, I'll have a go at this. And I was really lucky, again, good friends, that I had met this guy in Berlin he was a content writer. He was moving back to Australia. He gave me his clients because he took a full-time job. And yeah, they gave me a shot, and 3 years later, I'm still content writing. And then, all of my clients are not aware that they finance this project. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I make videos for the art gallery here, as well as some other clients, and so there's sort of that side of what I do, and they know that I make posters and stuff. Well, some of them do. Like, I've had clients before that have got no idea. But it's those things don't necessarily connect. But I definitely need to do the poster work in order to feel, in order to not go crazy, like just making videos for people, because it wouldn't really be enough for me. So it's just funny how you sort of, you go through school and they're like, oh, what do you want to be? And you go, oh, I get to choose one thing.
Yeah.
And you end up being this kind of this mismatch of stuff, which just feels so much better, strangely.
Yeah, exactly. It's bizarre how I've never been like that. I've had so many jobs, and I I just like to master something, and then I tend to like to move on. Or I like the things that are dynamic enough that as you evolve, you can add more to them. You're not kind of sitting still. Yeah, but that's another thing I resonated a lot with when you're talking about your external work and your street art. And it was kind of inspiring to me to think like, okay, even people that have a lot of credibility within their craft, they kind of like juggle different creative endeavors to make sure they've got the financing for pursuing their passions.
Yeah, it's amazing how, like, I mean, big directors like Martin Scorsese will still make commercials for people every now and then, and everyone's got a hustle in some sense, and it it keeps you hungry in some ways, and also you do pick up ideas and skills from places that, from having to do work that you wouldn't necessarily choose to do. I think once you if I was just living off posters entirely, it would kill off a bit of the hunger, I think. And so, I don't know. I find, like, when I started being an artist, I was painting acrylics on canvas, and I just thought, wouldn't it be great to just paint acrylics on canvas and spend my whole day doing that and nothing else? I don't want to have a job or any of those things. And I'm much happier now having things sort of broken up into a bunch of different pieces and sort of jumping
Mm,
between projects and things. So yeah, it's
yeah,
just odd how things work out.
it's true. It's kind of it's almost a break when you, like for myself, when I have client work, because it's just it's someone else's thing, you know? I
Yeah,
can kind of put it together, create it, and then it's theirs. I don't have my name to it. I
exactly.
don't really mind. Yeah,
And
it's
they
kind of
say, "Oh, can we?"
refreshing.
Yeah, they try to change it in some way, and you go, "All right, fine. If that's what you want, you don't have to think about. But what? How does this express me? Like you
Yeah.
don't have to." You know?
Yeah.
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 Anyway.
It's very nice. Yeah, exactly. Nice. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for your time, Peter. I appreciate it so much. It's lovely to talk to
Oh, thanks,
you.
Harvey.
Thank you so much for listening. That was the wonderful Peter Drew. As you can tell, I failed my podcast hosting duties to do a proper goodbye and tell you all to buy Peter's book. Poster Boy is available through Black Ink Books, and it's an incredible read. Whether you're curious about how these campaigns come to life or you just appreciate honest authors giving insight into their experience, I am sure that you'll enjoy it as much as I did. All links to Peter's website and Black Ink Books are in the description. If you enjoyed the podcast, please be sure to subscribe and follow, depending on where you're listening, and please do leave us a review. I would love to hear your feedback. Thanks again for tuning in. I have been your host, Stephanie O'Brien, and this has been Street Art Unearthed by Splatters.